Joy 99.7 FM. Like I said, we are on Love 99.5 FM. We are on a dozen affiliates across the country. This is your election headquarters. We're on your Joy News channel, DSTV 421, Go TV 144. My name is Gifty Ando-Apia. I'm doing this with Samson Ladi Anyinini and Raymond Aqua. Earlier, you had Evans Mensah and Winston Amwa. They brought you details looking at specific regions, specific constituencies, analyzing the numbers for you. We're here and look at what President Akufo-Addo has said. He has been given the second mandate. He's been talking. You just heard him address party faithful at the NPP's headquarters, and I'll just summarize what he said. He told them that we're going to work hard, as in the party is going to work hard. He asked them to continue to support him. He says that the seats that the NDC has taken away from the NPP, he promised that they would take them back, and he says they are starting today. 4 more years to do more, he says. He asked them to understand him and to understand Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, his vice president, and also because he says he will never forget them. These are the words that he gives them. He says, God bless them, and told them that after 4 years, after this 4 years that he's serving, he's sure to hand over the power or keep the power within the NPP. What we'll be doing is to try and analyze what he said going forward. Earlier, Raymond talked about what stood out for him from the president's speech, and Samson was just making his point. Samson, we can take you back to make that point. But if you're listening to us, or watching us, I want you to send us a WhatsApp message. The number is 055 1111 997 055 1111997. Send us a WhatsApp. What message do you want to share? What do you want to say to who? Just drop it and we will share it with the rest of the world. Something.
So the high point for me, among others, was where the president acknowledged that it's not been an easy, election, and that it gives an opportunity. The present circumstances opens the opportunity for the two parties to collaborate, to work together. If, as we know, they have not been working together as much as is expected. Yesterday Raymond, underscored the fact, which is a fact, that they agree on a lot more things as regards the laws they have to pass and the appropriations that they have to take care of for the government business to run. Yeah. But we know that there are some bigger things that come to the house that they disagree so sharply about. So this is, if you like, Ghanaians forcing them to begin to work together a lot more.
I hope so.
Which is good.
Yes. So let's see if, in fact, that will play out, especially if, in the end, as they say, they have confirmed 137. 137 is not majority. 138 is majority. And even that majority is not something that you should be comfortable about.
Still pretty tight.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Because anything can happen to anybody, any day. And if you need majority on a day and somebody is unwell or something, it can throw your whole thing, out of gear. So that call, I think all of them, and also the guys in the NDC, I'm looking forward to the few days ahead of us, what the NDC will say. I doubt that they intend to make any statements today. Okay. I doubt that President Mahama will speak and talk about these elections today. If he will say something, perhaps it could be tomorrow or in the course of the week or perhaps next week. And when they do, then we'll begin to measure the posture, how they intend to go forward, as in trying to work together. Because clearly, as it looks, if the outstanding seats don't happen to go in their favor, as in the NPP's favor, then clearly they still are in trouble. They still are in trouble. But you see, as you listen to the two parties, what each really desires is to have the majority from the word go. So they will have the power to determine who becomes the next Speaker of Parliament. Who becomes, the Deputy Speaker, and then forming the various committees in Parliament. There's a lot of them in Parliament. So that appears to be even the most important thing for them to start. Most important things if you listen to Johnson Echie, you would hear that at each time he says, we are going to pick the next speaker.
Yes.
You see, and that's what they actually, relish.
Do you get the sense that they were even much more interested in that part of the conversation than the presidential results? That's a feeling I got listening to.
It's not a feeling. It's what they communicated.
Yeah.
What they've been communicating up to this point.
Because the first press conference, I think, which happened, about 12 a.m., that was the focus. The focus was on the parliamentary, on the parliamentary seats and how they have.
And then there was a next one that followed. It was still on the parliamentary.
Yes.
Echie Nketia came to talk to us.
But mind you, the previous one, after they had talked about the parliamentary seats, the NPP then held their press conference and said, did you see these people talk about the parliamentary seats rather than, they didn't even talk about the presidential.
Right.
And so the next one, we heard them say something about the presidential.
That's right. And in the NPPs, they spoke about the presidential and decided not to major on the parliamentary. Because at that time,
choosing your questions.
Everybody's playing to their strength.
They were unsure.
Yeah.
You see, they were unsure, but they won't tell
Obviously.
you. They won't tell you. But now we know that even speaking to them, whilst they seem to sound as though they are sure about it, you still can't tell exactly that they are absolutely sure.
There's a bit of uncertainty there.
There's a bit there. Okay. Now, they confirm to you that they have 137. And they know that Andrea Macron Fomina, my guy, they know that,
we've been hoping to talk to him all day, actually. His phones are off.
Even when they were driving him out and pushing him out of Parliament, he kept saying one thing.
That
he will win, and when he wins, his victory will be for the NPP.
Yeah. I find him to be a very principled guy, but the coming days will tell us what will actually substantiate that perception that we have. Raymond, you've been wanting to jump into this parliament conversation. I think we'll just stay on this and finish it.
Very much so. It's also because, the comparison that was made to the 1979 situation. People forget that Liman did not have the minority in parliament. People should not forget that. In fact, he had a majority of one, a slim majority of one. If this Fomena incident joins the NPP's own, it could equally be a similar situation.
Okay.
Now, what was more interesting about Liman's own, and I think the point that we needed to make constitutional changes was more to do with the fact that because for the first time, it was in that 79 constitution that we said you shouldn't appoint anybody from parliament. So they occupy both the executive role of minister and also be member of parliament. So Liman appointed 9 of his ministers and deputy ministers from parliament. Okay. All of those 9 had to resign. Luckily for him, when they resigned, and this 9 included Harry Sawyer, the late Harry Sawyer. Okay. Now, when the 9 left parliament, they actually went for by-election. Even after the by-election, his party won all the seats that they lost. Don't forget that there was a 10th person whose by-election, he never occupied it. That is General FIFA, won his election, joined that particular 1979 Parliament of Liman, but he could never occupy the seat because he was executed.
Okay.
So they had to go for a by-election in Mampong. And that Mampong by-election added up to the 10th person for the UNC.
Highlight for me the comparison you're making
here. The comparison here is that, one, it is not the case, and people have been saying it a lot, that in Liman's time, Liman had a minority in parliament.
Okay.
Indeed, when they want to distinguish that situation from what is currently happening and say that, we in the MPP may have a majority of 1. I am stressing to them that in Liman's time, he had a majority of 1. Okay. Indeed, he had 71, and I could go through the figures, but he had 71 MPs for his PNP. Victor Usu's PFP had 42. William Oforiatta's UNC had 13. Frank Banasco, the ACP, they had 10. Ibrahim Mohammed's HDF had 3, and there was one independent candidate.
And how did things go in that particular parliament? Because, mind you, we're trying to draw some comparison here, right?
Now, Liman's parliament was truncated, and one of the incidents that happened in parliament was the rejection of the budget. Now, the man could not appoint ministers from parliament. The people he appointed at parliament had been removed from that parliament.
Okay.
There was a big gap between his parliament and the executive, and they were not functioning properly.
Right.
Going forward,
I think that's the basis of Samson's fears yesterday.
I get you.
Yeah.
But my other point is that going forward, and I'm only saying that because I wanted to clarify the point people are making clearly that, oh no, Liman's case was in the minority. And minority, we are not in the minority. So we can't say the same. We are even a majority of one. If the independent candidate joins us, we are actually going to have one more person.
Okay.
I am asking them to exercise caution that it's factually inaccurate to claim that Liman was in the minority. In that his 71 was in the majority. Secondly, it was also because there seemed to have been some friction between the executive and the legislature. So when a few of the people Liman could rely on in his parliament were not available during the parliamentary votes, and some machinations some people believe happened, that's why his budget was rejected. The budget rejection has been cited as one of the reasons why Liman's government collapsed. It actually points out that they need to work together, as the president pointed out here.
Okay.
They cannot be business as usual. We will reject them. Let the minority have their say, and the majority will have their way. In any case, the Westminster definition of a hung parliament is also not one that has a slight, that has the minority. It is one that doesn't have an absolute majority. So we could still call our parliament hung, even with the minority of a few, a majority of a few more than the opposing side.
That's right.
So that's one clarification we need to do here. We are not clearly out of the woods in dealing with this situation.
Yeah.
People should not make it look like because there's one more. I mean, clearly
we can move on from here.
I think Ghanaians have a history of working better together, and the NPP and NDC sometimes, even though they alternate and they fight and they do other things, they cooperate most of the time. Cooperation is their mainstay. It's when it comes to Kelny GVGs of this world, and when it comes to the
am I right if I assume,
of this world.
Am I right if I assume that you're saying it is when it comes to bills or agreements where people feel like someone is chopping more?
Yes, that's predominantly the case. When people feel that this will not, sometimes, see, two things. On the outward part, it could be the manifest reason for some of this rejection could be that it's not in the state's interest, and we believe it's not in the state's interest. The latent reason for the action could also be that we are not getting as much as we should get from you.
Okay,
so
because that was the sense I was getting from the deductions you were making.
That is the cooperation that we expect them to do in the interest of the state, not cooperation in the interest of their pocket.
Because we've seen them cooperate on a lot of things, especially when it comes to personal things.
One thing has become very clear. You have heard some people in the NPP already begin a communication posture.
Yeah.
That suggests that we have majority, and you can go to hell.
Yeah.
What the president said, and again, even if you listen to Kojo Nkrumah when he spoke right after the president spoke, and is it Manuel who interviewed him? Elton John Broby interviewed him. In one breath, he wanted to be optimistic, but you could tell the caution with which he spoke. You could tell the caution. He was cautious in the manner in which he had to project that posture that says we have the majority, so we can, proceed with things. We don't care who you are. The NPP must get its people, its communicators, its leaders across to appreciate from this point moving forward that even if the presidential is contested, the presidency is contested, the parliamentary appears to remain what it is And in the end, if the 3-4 seats got into a certain contest, you are not guaranteed that you could get all of them.
Yeah.
And even if you did, you will still not have that comfortable majority to work with. As we sit today, the parliament is almost split.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you need each side to work. So a communication posture that suggests we need to work together will be good to begin with.
Okay.
Rather than a language that seeks to, tell the other people off.
Mm-hmm.
You get it?
Okay.
And that also includes how you try, the president gave a statement earlier on his Facebook wall and urged celebration or jubilation in moderation.
Yeah. He actually said it again today.
At this very, grounds, I heard somebody use certain expressions.
That's the National Nasara coordinator.
Nasara guy.
Yeah.
Use certain expressions. These people must be told that we probably are going to do away with that era where you think that you can get up and simply run down the opposition leader.
To what extent the
in
communication...
very abusive, vile language.
To what extent does communication outside of that setting affect what happens in terms of how the executive or the NPP will be able to negotiate their way with the NDC?
Greatly. And you see, those down there,
Yeah.
they take a cue from those up there.
Okay.
How they see them treat the opposition is how they will also treat the opposition.
How the communicators will
Exactly.
do
That's how it will work. But they should listen, even from now. Listen to how the president spoke and all other top executive who spoke
Yeah.
or said one thing or the other.
Okay.
Listen to how they spoke.
All right.
Right.
Wait, Raymond, I want to take it from where Samson left. That
Very much so.
we need to, they need to be careful with their communication, because then that will have implications on their ability to negotiate their way through Parliament and make government work, governing easy.
Yeah.
Based on what we know from the way these political parties have operated, behaved in the past, do you see that is something that's easily achievable? Or will there be something extraordinary out of the ordinary that we need to do to achieve that?
In most political parties, there are two groups. They call them the hawks and the doves. There are some people who are between the two. All that is required currently is for the hawks in political parties, those who are hot-headed, those who speak before they think, which is mostly what happens anyway, to be reined in. They should be made to know that if anybody with basics in political science would understand, politics is mostly about compromise, cooperation, and that negotiation part is all important. We cannot continue to reduce the politics we do in this country to the usual opposition, just fighting on useless issues, which do not... And if we are going to get anywhere, it is when we're able to deal with the other side.
Yeah.
Get rid of that winner-takes-all mentality. And that's what feeds into this, forget about them. They are not part of us. We need to do the things that we ought to do differently.
Maybe I'm unnecessarily skeptical, but I don't see that happening.
I think we can do it. Listen, when political power is at stake, politicians will be willing to do a lot of things.
That's true.
Don't forget, the people who tell you they don't have money to do your roads, the people who tell you that they cannot do certain things, when they realize that political power is slipping out of their hands, they would actually be forced to cooperate.
All of a sudden.
Now, the president would not want a country that looks ungovernable from Parliament. That every single week, Parliament is sending a signal to the executive president that your business is rejected. And it could go to the point that every single week, the news of the day will be coming from Parliament, which will be not so good for him, which will not help in the things he wants to achieve, which will be like, at the end of his 4 years, the major things that people could remember him for is the strife in Parliament. And don't forget, so many things might have happened in the Liman's 27 months of being in power. But having to have your budget rejected and that being cited as an excuse for your government to be removed has been one of the things that people consistently make reference to.
Okay.
I don't know if you get my point.
I get it.
I do not think that the now Danko Akufo-Addo, who said that he has a legacy to leave, there's hard work to be done, and that he's not going to relax, will be interested in having his parliament bogged down.
Because he failed to negotiate.
Engage on the other side properly. And you
right.
see, the engagement, nobody's asking you to go and bend over backwards to the minority.
Something I've given one example.
It is some of these things
through the communication.
that a Nasara coordinator, Abdulaziz Futa also.
Futa, yeah.
I mean, in the euphoria and the excitement, you might be irresponsible in speech. We hope that it's not how you're going to run in the next 4 years and think that you are entirely in charge of all the levers of power, so you can do whatever you want. That attitude would get a reaction. And the ordinary people are the ones who are going to suffer. Because if there's money to be devoted under the IPEP, Integrated Poverty Eradication Program, under which we had all of these one village, one dam, and all of the other things happening. If money is supposed to be devoted to an area, and the money is actually not devoted to the area, because you are dealing with idiosyncrasies, merely to do with things that may not be material, it is up to the government of the day to be responsible enough, because you have the mandate of the people, and do what is right. So I agree perfectly. There's a lot of call on us to now do the proper politics, to shun the divisive, the vindictiveness, and all the negative things that our politics have been known for the years that we've been engaging. Okay. The posturing that we have power and we are the ones who are entirely in charge. The posturing that, to hell with you, we control security services, we can deal with you whichever way we want. That evolution in thinking, that's governance is just for the people, and that we are all in it to help the people better and improve their service.
Perhaps a way of dealing with this problem that we've always highlighted, the winner takes all problem.
Will be this is compelled electoral action through a winner.
The winner takes all.
And I agree perfectly. It might work out.
And again, the reason I like to, keep some focus on the posturing and the conduct of both sides, more particularly the winner, as in the presidential election, as we know for now for a fact, by the declaration in law. When you hear Professor White make that allegation that in Ashanti region, as many as 390,000 votes may be at stake, then they also make a reference to Eastern region. They are talking about some 6,000 or so votes, something like that. What I want to see, and as I said earlier, is to see the evidence that backs that. And if they do have the evidence, you don't want anybody to contest the election. Nobody wants it. Everybody rather will wish that, irrespective of what the opposition may have, they would rather sit down and try to reach some compromises and say, okay, you know what, this one, let's let it go and wait for the next election and go about it. By our law, if they had the evidence and they decided to mount a challenge, like the Savulugu situation, we hear Dami say they are endorsing or signing on protest, and that they will eventually, within 21 days, which the law allows, they will seek to annul the illegal votes. By the law, when a complaint is made or an election challenge is mounted, the court has the power to look into the circumstances of the votes that are alleged to be illegal and unlawful. And the law speaks about scrutiny. So the court could go through a process by which they can go into the circumstance and check. There have been X number of votes. These voters, were their names in the register? Then they will start a process of whittling those votes down. Now, look at the margin that we are talking about now.
Okay, I just want to draw the linkage between this particular point and the government or the NPP's ability to engage the NDC to make governing easy for them.
So, if you have an opposition that is likely, we do not know for now if they may want to mount a suit.
Okay.
And thankfully, this time round, if they decided to mount any suit, within 42 days, that suit will be dealt with. We will not have 8 months when the government will be put in a very difficult situation of governing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to hint at. So supposing that they showed the evidence and they decided that they were going to mount a petition, if they did, that's what I'm saying. Sit back, ask yourself, what is the margin that gives you the victory? If you ask yourself that question, and they are speaking to, they say they are alleging 390,000 votes, and then they are talking about Eastern region, they've spoken about some other things. All I need is to see what the evidence looks like.
All right.
Now, if they put all of that together, which one is it? The Techiman South? Which is the one?
The one that was
the Techiman
excluded.
South. That's
Techiman South, yes.
The 120,
right. So, if you look at
128,018.
If you look at all of those circumstances, then you have to ask yourself, sit back and ask yourself, eventually, is there the possibility, no matter how slim, of a contest that will lead to the annulling of a certain number of votes that can affect the overall? And election petitions, that's really what they boil down to.
Okay.
If we had to attack this number of votes, what is the net effect, significance on the overall?
Okay.
So look at the margin and use that also to advise yourself.
So you're looking at the psyche of an opposition that looks at the figures and considers its options with those figures,
right,
and how they will behave when it comes to engaging.
Exactly.
Or interesting.
Because how you treat them from the start may determine how they react.
Okay. Interesting
There's
point,
this
actually.
example.
It took a while for me to get there.
I get you. There's this example in the United States where somewhere in 1878 or so, there was an election, and just like what happened in the Donald Trump case, there was some difficulty. There were alleged difficulties.
There still are.
Yes, they wanted to go ahead of that. Do you know what the government did? The winning team, the winning Democratic team, decided to reach out to the Republicans and say, your agenda, you had a 4-pronged agenda. We are taking 2 of the 4. Which ones do you want us to implement as a way of letting go? They agreed. The final concession between the two was that our main aim is on health reform. If you are going to take up health reform, we will let go our challenges across the country.
I see.
So that it can rule and run properly.
No, but we know that presently Trump doesn't really have any evidence.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about Trump's current case. I'm saying this is a very old case that happened in the U.S.
Right.
It was a wonderful way of resolving an impending election dispute purely on the table, purely by people who are level-headed, by people who believe that the country first. I don't want to hold the country to ransom.
And that's the basis that I come in all the time with my skepticism. And I say that over the years, we haven't really seen politicians, the typical Ghanaian politician, show that behavior, that the interests of the nation first. At least that's how I see it.
To a large extent, what will be compelling the action today will be the fact that we learned from 2012 how such actions or threats of such actions can affect the state. in varied forms. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So what I'm trying to say here is that the posturing of the winner would inform many of the actions, like something hinted earlier, of those who appear to be aggrieved by the current circumstance.
Raymond, I have to just interrupt you briefly. You know that the night is still young, and it's going to be, even when it gets old, it will be young for a lot of people. I want to take you to Bantama, where Ohime Teria is standing by for us. Ohime has a very interesting thing to show us. You can see, if you're watching us, some of the visuals already. Ohime, I'm handing over to you now.
A sea of NPP supporters, immediately the Electoral Commission announced the election results, declaring President Akufo-Addo president-elect after the 2020 elections. I must say, the supporters, clad in MPP paraphernalia, took over the streets immediately the announcement was made. And you can see all manner of supporters, irrespective of their age, both young and the old, taking over the streets of Bantama. Let's speak to this gentleman here. What's your name?
My name is Jonathan Asiedu.
Okay. Do you live around here?
Yeah. I live around here.
Why are you here?
I am here because of MPP winning the 2020 elections. First of all, I want to congratulate Nana Akufo-Addo for winning the general election here in Ghana. And I want to tell the NDC people that in 2012, when Akufo-Addo went to the court, the general secretary for NDC, told MPP people that any idiot can go to court. And today, I want to tell them that any idiot can go to court. So if we are not convinced about what the EC said, we are not convinced.
Okay. So let me talk to this woman, lady also. What am I to say? Who put you from? Are you from out here? Supporter of the New Patriotic Party. She comes all the way from Kwangoma, several kilometers away from Bantama, but she is actually here to take part in the celebrations here. I must say, the people here have taken over the entire stretch of the Bantama streets. It measures about 5 kilometers. So motorists who want to access this particular road, there's an option to come to Bantama, especially those who are traveling from Abeko Junction through to Adum. So, do you live in Bantama?
No, I came from America just to vote for Nana Akufo-Addo.
You came from America to vote for Nana Akufo-Addo?
I'm sorry, what are you saying?
Okay, so how does it feel to be here?
I am so happy and I'm so proud of Ghana for all the work they have done. Nana Akufo-Addo, we are with you for more.
Why did you have to travel all the way from US to take part in the election?
I have a business and I have housing here, and Nana Akufo-Addo has helped my business, helped our people, and I'm just so proud to be a Ghanaian.
So the Jubilant supporters are here in their numbers. From a few minutes ago, I saw a vehicle, a team of military officers patrolling the streets to ensure there's enough security for supporters who are here on the streets. And it's a large crowd, it's a sea of NPP supporters clad in NPP paraphernalia. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
What's your name?
I'm Akufo-Addo.
Do you live around Bantama?
No, I just live around Akufo-Addo menu.
Akufo-Addo menu?
Yeah.
Okay. So when are you leaving this place?
Oh, very soon, very soon. I'm very, very tired because I'm very, very excited. Nana Akufo-Addo won the election, right? So I'm okay, I'm all right.
So why are you here? What is the essence of you coming to these streets?
I'm here to come and celebrate the victory of Nana Akufo-Addo. That's why I'm here.
Couldn't you have celebrated this in your place where you live?
No. Bantama is the main city of Kumasi. And you know, people from Kwadaso, Tafo, Abrepo will come and meet here so that the jubilation will be very, very excited. So I wish to come and celebrate it here. Because of Nanado, I love Nanado. Because of the free education, that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I thank you for speaking to Joy News TV. And so,
Nanado, you wouldn't know.
What's a heifer?
What's a
Heifer out here?
If you quite have so many anti-free fun about her, just tell me who named Yamati Sanado, you know. Me who named that. Oh, Sanado.
So this woman tells me she had to trek all the way from Kwadaso, about 8 kilometers away from Bantama, just to come and join the teaming MPP supporters to celebrate the election victory of Nana Akufo-Addo. So for the supporters of MPP, the announcement of the Electoral Commission has come at the right time, and they are taking part in celebrations. And they tell me they will not leave until dawn, until they think that yes, they have celebrated enough. And so yes, in the streets of Bantama, in Kumasi, it's been a healing area.
Some very unreasonable things. I think the people that we are giving the so we should start negotiating our way throughout and start building systems that last for a period. I am fed up with having democracy that is only having elections every time and we pat ourselves on the back and thinking we are developing. There are so many other fruits of democracy that we could be reaping and yet we are not getting that because we have put impediments in our own way. Impediments including having to steal off ourselves and my friends and my people, unlike what should be the case, engaging people, representing their interests, and making sure that at the end of the day, we are getting better with every single election, marking an improvement. So, for example, the next election, we should not hear of some of these basic things that we had in this election. People taking ballot boxes, people having to go chase out military men, having to be there and having to shoot, and all those small things actually detract from the standards that we ought to improve our system with. And do you know what will show that? If by the word of the president, and don't get me wrong, I heard the president do an acceptance speech. I have been trying to compare the acceptance speech in the year 2016 with the acceptance speech now. I am of the opinion that politicians sometimes make statements that they don't really think they want to live by.
Okay, so I want us to stay in Parliament and finish in Parliament. Then we'll look at the bigger picture.
Brilliant.
And I think let's bring the point about the recounting. I mean, backstage we were talking about it, that it's a point that has come out strongly. And even though we've declared the presidential election, we know that there are outstanding issues with our parliamentary elections. So, Samson, you wanted to throw in a little bit of education on recounting of results. One of the points that has been made is that you can't demand recounting at the coalition center, but you say the law says different.
You're right. Let's begin from where Raymond ended. And he says, we don't want to come back and see ballot snatching and the rest of them. How do we get to that point? The only way to get to that point is to punish the perpetrators. The law is very clear on all of these issues because they have been criminalized by the law. If somebody snatched ballot, if somebody even interfered with the ballot, not snatching it, the wrongs that people committed, all of them are taken care of by law. Are these people going to be in the situation that we are used to after elections? Once the elections are over, all those who got involved with all of these things are also free. Nothing goes on. In fact, we are hearing accusations leveled at EC officers.
Yeah.
The law is very clear. The EC officers, after the 2012 election petition, upon the recommendations by the Supreme Court, where the law says, the court said, we cannot punish the voter for the officer's wrong. He was supposed to sign a pink sheet. He did not sign the pink sheet. But the voter voted, and there was no problem with the voter's vote. And it was properly captured. And if a presiding officer or somebody did something wrong, why should the voter be punished for his wrong? So this is what we did. We then made sure that in the subsequent laws that we make, the officers, EC officers, also face a punishment. Where is it? It's in somewhere section 45. Yeah. It says 45.2, not section, regulation 45.2 of the Public Election Regulations 2020. Says an election officer who is required to perform a function under these regulations but fails to perform that function commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not more than 500 penalty units, that's 6,000 Ghana cedis, or to a term of imprisonment of not more than 2 years, or to both, and shall for a period of 5 years from the date of expiration of the term of imprisonment be disqualified from being engaged as an election officer. All the EC officers that were found to have done some wrong, shall we hear the news? Shall there be a publicity about how they have been punished in accordance with law, so that somebody doesn't get to do it again thinking that there will not be any punishment for them? Come to talk about the question of the recount issue. I think that one we can find it in regulation 39.
And Samson is reading,
Yes.
for those of you listening on radio, Samson is reading from a document. Samson, do you want to tell us what document it is?
This is the Public Elections Regulation 2020.
Okay.
That's CI 127. This is the law we used to govern this election.
Yeah.
So, apart from punishing the election officers, the issue of the recounting, and the thing I have heard, and I've heard even the minority leader, I think it was at a press conference of sort or an engagement with the press, where he stated with such emphasis that the coalition center is for the collation of results and not for recounting, and that recounting cannot happen outside the polling station.
That's not true.
It's not, because that's not what the law says.
Okay.
Regulation 39, sub-regulation 4, says a candidate or a representative of a candidate or a counting agent may, if present when the counting of the ballot is completed, request the presiding officer to recount the ballots and again recount the ballot for a second time. So number one, the most important thing that must happen is that the candidate or the candidate's representative must have been present during the counting. If once they were present during the counting of the ballots and the counting is finished and they have a problem with it, they must tell the presiding officer who is in charge of the polling station, ask them for a recount. Then the law says they can ask again for a second recount, a second count. Now, if they ask that, check what the law says. In sub-regulation 5, the presiding officer may refuse to comply with the request to recount the ballot for a second time if, in the opinion of the presiding officer, the request is unreasonable. So, he finds that it's unreasonable. He decides that I won't grant you a third recount or whatever it is. What does the law say he should do? Matters don't end there. The law says if he decides that he will not recount again because the request is unreasonable, he shall, which means mandatory, compulsory, he shall report the matter to the returning officer. The returning officer is in charge of the what? The constituency, not so?
Yes.
That's the person with power over the constituency.
Yeah.
He shall report the matter to the returning officer, who shall recount the ballot for that polling station only at the constituency collation center.
So not at the National Collation Center, but at the Constituency Collation Center.
Yes.
The National Collation Center is what the EC has been working with.
The point here
is that it can't only be at the polling
there is
station.
a suggestion that says that beyond the polling station, there cannot be a recounting of ballots, but only recollation is not borne out by the law.
Right.
The law says once the presiding officer disagrees with you that I cannot recount again because it's unreasonable, he is bound by law to report the matter to the constituency, constituency? The returning officer. Okay. And the returning officer at the collation center can do what? The recount.
Okay.
It sounds
so that's a bit of
education
there.
It does.
Raymond, you want to make a point before we move on?
It sounds reasonable to everybody.
Okay.
Because at the point that you might be requesting for your third recount, most of the people might have moved the ballot boxes to the collation center.
Yes.
It will sound unreasonable to me for you to bring the ballot boxes back to the polling station for that counting to be done. I think his issue is with the place where it is done.
Okay.
Indeed, by the time that it's got into the collation center, that is the only foreseeably reasonable place for you to do the recount.
Exactly.
And it's quite understandable to many.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is new, because this claim that's been going around has been there for a very long time. I do recall that in the run-up to the 2012 election, even the EC's training manual gave indications that you know that the person cannot do a recount at the polling station. So when they ask for it first time, I agree. The second time, I agree. Then you can ask for directives from your boss to do it a third time when it's required.
Okay.
That's why I'm actually interested in how this became the current situation, because previously it had not been communicated to even the people that the EC trained that was the standards that was supposed to be applied.
Okay.
Now,
and let's not forget that the commission chair is the returning officer for the presidential ballot.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I hope that this information has gone down well. Obviously, as we go along, we'll be getting more of the reactions. Like Samson said, we will know from what the losing party says, what the next actions will be.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll get there. I want us to finish wrapping up or finish discussing the president's speech.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there. We should be closing somewhere before 9 p.m. So if you're joining us right now, I asked earlier for you to send us message.
Are we also that lucky?
Yeah.
We are not closing at 1.
No, we are not. So we're not.
Okay.
So I've been asking you to send me WhatsApp messages. I'm just realizing that the messages aren't coming through. And so I'll be announcing for you another number. It looks like there's a little bit of a problem with the number that I announced earlier. So I'll announce for you another number. And I just really desperately want to hear from you before we finish this election headquarters, by all means. So drop me a message on 0540-109009. That's 0540-109009. If you watch a lot of Joy News, you know that this number is very familiar. So go on your WhatsApp and drop us a message. This is the night of the declaration of our election results. We'll be wrapping up shortly, and I want to hear from you before we do that. So apologies for those of you who have been sending your messages and you haven't had the messages being read, yet we're still asking for messages. That's because there was a little bit of a problem with that particular line. So do send your message to this one that I have just announced. We're discussing President Akufo-Addo's, if you like, acceptance of victory speech and looking at how the elections have gone for us. We did a bit of that yesterday. We're here wrapping it up with this final one. Samson, so he talked about, I'm going to start from the top where he talked about the fact that they've been given 4 more years to do more. And then he chipped in a bit of the congratulatory messages he says he's been receiving. What we have seen in the past is that someone mentioning this will usually tell you who has called me, especially the significant ones. We didn't see that in this particular message. You have already said that you are hoping that we would have heard from if I got it right, you would have heard from the NDC's flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama.
And that would have been his desire. As in President Akufo-Addo, his desire really would have been to have John Mahama call him, but it doesn't look like, clearly that has not happened, and it doesn't look like that is likely to happen anytime soon.
Is that a big deal?
It's a very big deal. It's a very big deal because you want to proceed in the knowledge that, there is already, and especially in the circumstance we find ourselves where Parliament is almost split.
Yeah.
Until we have further, certified results for the constituencies that gives us clarity as to the questioning of, NDC's numbers, because they still insist that they have 140, which then will mean that the NPP is in trouble.
Yeah.
Somewhat trouble, quote unquote. Particularly in that circumstance, you would want from the word go to have, the lines opened, lines of communication opened between yourself and your opponent who lost.
Okay.
You get it?
Yes.
So, apart from what it does to the whole victory, the additional credibility really that it gives to the whole victory. You really would want the opportunity to exist so that you could reach, the lines are open, you could reach out to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that he will be disturbed about that.
Okay.
Even if he doesn't show it.
It's the early days yet. Let's see how the next couple of days go. But Raymond, he also talks about the fact that he sees this victory as an endorsement of the government's policies and programs. The free SHS is something that lots of people have talked about. Is it really an endorsement, especially given the margin?
See, to be fair, when John Kufuor actually won the year 2000 elections, the 2004 election had a greater margin than the 2000 elections. Now, the NPP's 2016 margin is higher than that of the 2020 margins. It's a cause for worry, and let's not joke with that. Now, if you compare the 2016 and 2020 votes for each region, there were drops in 10 out of the 16 regions in terms of percentage that they garnered over the period. 2016 versus 2020. Now, on the other side of the NDC, there were only drops in six of the regions, out of the 16 in this case.
Are these 6 regions the traditional regions or the new ones included?
I think the new ones are included. Half of them are from the new ones in this case.
NDC has majority of the regions.
Yes.
Yes, NDC actually
controls majority of the regions.
Yes. Now, the interesting part is that it suggests to a very large extent, to me, what I think is the overriding factor in this decision of the people is that they didn't want to disturb the 8-year period given to government for a period. So the NPP gets 8 years after 2016, 2020, like the way the NDC had 2009 into 2016. Now, that is where perhaps John Dramani Mahama as an individual probably wasn't treated quite fairly with the historic part. Listen to it this way. He didn't have 8 years, but his party had 8 years. Yeah. So they just wanted to maybe replace another government with the other within the 8-year period. I am skeptical about anybody putting a lot of credence beyond, let's say, free SHS. If you have watched the independent review of the other programs that this government has put in place, they have not scored extremely high marks. So I'm not one of those who's so excited about, for example, we started in the year 2017 that we're going to buy every single constituency was going to get $1 million equivalent. Yeah. It reached a point, and in the year 2019, one of the last interviews I did before I went away for some time was with the people who are running the Greater Accra version of that particular program. That is the IPEP, which is the 1 million per constituency. If you see how woeful that has been implemented, that within a matter of 3 years, the amount that have been pumped into the system was far lower than the amount required for a single year. You cannot tell me that that's a successful implementation of a program. So government, and see, all of this requires some reflection. I've talked about how votes are waning on the side of the government. This was a party that promised to deliver a very huge margin.
And in fact, the president begins his message today by saying that they knew from the onset that they were going to, they were confident from the beginning that the work they have done will secure 4 more years for them.
There were some operatives of this government that were even saying that we're going to deliver almost 2 million vote difference. We have seen the reality on the ground.
They spoke about it with a lot of confidence.
Yes. I think that sometimes election results demand sober reflection. Speeches sometimes create the impression that all is well. But I know that within the MPP's own fold, they know all is not well. They know that there are some real problems with the programs they have implemented over the period or failed to implement over the period. There were so many promises. And I remember just when this government came into power, I did a report which was called the acid test. And the question I asked in that report was that, will this government be able, in the 4 years that has given itself, implement all the lofty, many programs it put up there? I was convinced they were not going to get it done. But there is required at this point some form of introspection that says that this is something we can do. This is something we cannot do. I was particularly impressed that in the NPP's new manifesto, they were not making as gigantic promises as they did in the year 2016. Because they are learning from that experience that they need to continue what they are doing. Some of them, because the minister who was in charge of the special development initiatives was boldly telling the people of this republic that, which form of dam were you expecting from me? Mindful of the amount of money you are devoted to the project. You get what I'm trying to say? And this is in connection with one village, one dam. And the fact that some believed they were just dugouts that were put up in places which were drying up across the country, and some of them were being virtually useless, the people in farms they were supposed to be. So if you really want to deliver on your promises, you have 4 good years. You need to scale them into the ones that are reasonable and the ones that cannot be implemented immediately. Okay. Talk to the people, because now there's nothing to lose. Now, you've won an election in that case.
Well, the president has actually addressed what you just said, Raymond. He says, and highlight. Let me just read it for you. He says, the period... okay, I'm trying to find that very line where he says that there are people who think that there's nothing to lose.
Yes, of course.
At this point.
Yeah.
And that he is not the kind that thinks that way.
Brilliant. He made that point.
Yes.
And I agree he made the point, but I'm also thinking that, I see, the real politics, sometimes politicians want to do things for the camera, but not the reality on the ground. They want to be seen as doing some things. Now, you remember that when this one district, one factory issue came in, the main issue we're asking was who was going to fund it from day one. They were wobbly about how it was going to be funded, and later on we were told it was government and private sector participation.
Yes.
It reached a point. Factories that were existing, factories that we knew were revamped. And I have no problems with revamping factories, but it should be clearly dictated to the people from day one what you want them to do. Now, we need, for example, to be able to do a proper review of these factories that are already intended to be built across the country, because manufacturing is a nice way of creating jobs. It's a wonderful way of getting people going to work every other time. See, there are people that in the UK ordinarily are likely to get jobs that they will be interested in. So, on the daily, there are factory worker operative jobs that are available. In this country, there are not as many of those jobs available because the factories are clearly not existent. And we cannot pretend that we are creating so many jobs when you are not creating the jobs. When we are recycling jobs like we do all the time, you remove Samson and his family members from a certain kind of job, then you bring Gifty and the family members into that particular job. That is just recycling and putting the other set of people into the same job. So we should be honest with ourselves and going forward, seek to uplift and improve the lives of the people, not for our families, immediate or extended, or moving on to look at only our political party members, because at the end of the day, that will not be progress. That will just be the same cycle going back and forth. And if the president wants to be the president who turned Ghana around just when we thought that we had the same system where not only winner takes all, corruption was dealt with the same way, the other issues where people promise and fail in big time forms, this is something he can do to change the system. He has 4 years to do that. And significantly, his concern should not be about handing over to another MPP government. His concern should be more about delivering and being known as Nana-Addo who transformed Ghana. And
on that score, because we'll be wrapping up shortly, I want to take some of the messages. But on that score, he had also indicated that going forward, one of the key things he'll be looking at is reversing the effect of COVID-19 and to put the country back on the road of recovery. We'll talk. I'll take your thoughts on that briefly before we wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so. But this message is from Bernard Asari. He says, I love the discussion you're having. It's very educative and worth listening to. Something there were some people who were actually asking for the information you gave us about the recount. People who have been very interested in finding out what the law says about recount. So something has answered that already. I'm sure your question.
It's in the regulation 39. Of regulation 39, sub-regulations 4 and 5 of the CI 127. But you must note, if you don't ask for the recount at the polling, you can't ask for it later. You must ask for it there.
Okay. And then if you're not satisfied, you do it again. If you're not satisfied, then you can do it elsewhere.
You ask for it at the polling station.
Yes.
But you are denied, yet it has to be referred to the returning officer, who will now ensure that it is done at the collation center. But you don't, if you don't ask for it, and then we go for collation, you cannot now come to collation center and say, I'm asking for recount. No, it's not done.
Understood. And this one says, I'm still thinking about what worked for Nana-Addo. In fact, the only thing I could remember is all about excessive sharing of money. Ghanaians have made a great mistake. Also, so you are wondering what worked for him. A lot of people have talked about free SHS. I don't know if that's what worked for him. This one says, you didn't add your name, by the way. This one says, the party owners who speak anyhow must be advised. We need a civilized democracy for development. Gloria sent that message from Brekum. Buhari has been retained. How much more Nana-Addo? at Agbefia said that one. This one says, so proud of Nana-Addo and the NPP, 4 more years to do more. Obaya says, please tell Nana-Addo to reduce the Obolo government. Obaya, thank you for your message as well. This one says, good evening, Joy News. You are the best of the best. Congratulations once again, Mr. President. Abdul Ganiu Mankrego sent that from Savannah region. So let me just take your thoughts, Raymond and Samson, on going forward, the road ahead of us. Now, we've made a whole lot of noise about the elections. We've gone, helter-skelter, done this, done that. We're here. We're moving forward. President Akufo-Addo says one of the priorities he'll be setting for himself will be revising the effect of COVID-19. I want to find out from you what you see ahead and the possibilities and the impediments that may stand in our way. I mean, anything you make of what he just said.
Yes, and the COVID part is, the economy is running, expected to, by the end of this year, grow at just 0.9%. That is woefully inadequate, and we understand the factors that are actually contributing to that. Even more so, the projection from the IMF is that next year we are growing at 4.2%. That's also not in sync with what we've been doing over the last couple of years, and also it's also woefully inadequate. What we expect is a government that is prudent in spending, a government that does not engage in fictitious, corrupt deals that drains money from our resources, and yet we get no productive engagements back. The election is over. We do not expect any election-related spending, any spending that creates the impression that it is for fanciful things that a developing country like ours can avoid. Now, I get worried, and let's not forget that there are still many people in this republic that don't have the basics of life. Yeah. Healthcare, water, electricity. We cannot, in the 21st century, look our people in the face and be doing and spending money on useless things when we could be doing that to actually uplift the lives of the people. So what I expect is that we're not going to get out of the woods of the economy anytime soon. Let's be clear. Okay. It's going to be difficult even going into next year. Even with the vaccine around and all of the other things, our economy is not going to pick up overnight. Yeah. All right. It's something that requires hard work. And we expect that the people who are running the states will do less of the ejapas and concentrate on the things that will uplift the people.
The actual work that puts us back on the on track, on the road to recovery. Samson, I need to wrap up in about 1 minute, apparently.
Yes, so the issues of the economy, we have hit the red line as far as our borrowing is concerned. So we are high risk, situation, and COVID has been identified as one of the issues to blame for where we have gotten to now, even though the opposition will clearly suggest that and give you the reasons why a lot of the borrowing had happened already. So if the president says his priority immediate, that's what he said, is to deal with the economy because of the effects of COVID, he's spot on about it. Okay. We have a country to build. So once the elections are over, I expect that we will all conduct ourselves in the most civilized manner. If we have issues, we know how the issues are supposed to be dealt with. They can be dealt with procedure that is set up for how to deal with them. Okay. Let's look to all of them. But yesterday, my complaint that I raised, I'll raise it again.
Obolo government.
We certainly have no reason, and there should never be a justification for a government of 123 or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now that we still have issues in Parliament and the majority and the minority, we'll see how it all goes. Thank you so much, guys. It's been, 3 days of disrupted programming?
But it's not over yet. For us, it's not over
for now, we can sleep.
There's a bit of a respite.
So it's been, about 3 days of, I think I left home on Monday and I haven't gone home yet. So at least we can say for now that we've come to a little bit of a rest. And we say thank you so much to all of you who joined us. Thank you, everybody that sponsored, that supported. And to our management here, everybody, we say thank you. A big shout out to Elvis Kwashi, our general manager, and to every single individual who has been a part of this. Samson Ladia Yenene here, who has put in a lot of sacrifice, as well as our returnee, Raymond Aqua, who have been doing this segment with me. Thank you, those of you who sent your messages. Sorry if we couldn't read it all. We've run out of time. But our normal programming on radio and TV begins tomorrow. I just want you to take note of that. Our normal programming for radio and TV begins tomorrow. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. It's been a full day with Evans Mensah and Winston Amua. And from the 997 studios, or Studio 997, I'm wrapping up. But you can still see there's a lot of jubilation in town. Do so in moderation. Do so in moderation. Do so in moderation. Have a good night. And we leave you with the declaration once again.
Yemi.
At the end of a transparent, fair, orderly, and timely and peaceful presidential election, the total number of valid votes cast was 13,434,574, representing 79% of the total registered voters. Permit me to present the results in the order of appearance on the 2020 presidential ballot. At the end of the polls, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo of the New Patriotic Party obtained 6,730,413 votes, being 51.595% of the total valid votes cast. John Dramani Mahama of the National Democratic Congress obtained 6,214,889 votes, being 47.366% of the total valid votes cast. Christian Kwabena Andrews of the Ghana Union Movement obtained 105,565 votes, being 0.805% of the total valid votes cast. Iva Kwabena Greenstreet of the Convention's People's Party obtained 12,215 votes, being 0.093% of the total valid votes cast. Madam Akufo-Addo of the Ghana Freedom Party obtained 5,575 votes, being 0.042% of the total valid votes cast. Henry Herbert Latte of the Great Consolidated Popular Party obtained 3,574, being 0.027% of the total valid votes cast. Hassan Ayariga of the All People's Party obtained 7,140, being 0.054% of the total valid votes cast. Percival Kofi Apalu of the Liberal Party of Ghana obtained 7,690 votes, being 0.059% of the total valid votes cast. David Asibi Apesara of the People's National Convention obtained 10,887, being 0.083% of the total valid votes cast. Bridget Akosua-Jigbonuku of the Progressive People's Party obtained 6,848 votes, being 0.052% of the total valid votes cast. Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings of the National Democratic Party obtained 6,612 votes, being 0.050% of the total valid votes cast. Alfred Kwame Isiedu Walker, independent candidate, obtained 9,703 votes, being 0.074% of the total valid votes cast. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, currently the election results we have declared exclude that of the Techiman South constituency, which has a total voter population of 128,018. 128,018. The said election results are not ready because they are being contested. As such, collation has not been completed. It is important to note, however, that the difference between the total number of votes between the first and second candidates is 515,524 votes. As a result, if we were to add the 128,018 full results to the results of the second candidate, it would not change the outcome of the election. Hence, our declaration of the 2020 presidential results without that of Techiman South. Indeed, if you were to add the entire results or collate all the results from the Techiman South constituency and add that to the percentage and the votes of the second candidate, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, he would obtain 47.873% of the total votes cast. And Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo would obtain 50.8% of the total votes cast. It is on that basis that we say that the outcome of the election would not change. Hence, our declaration of the 2020 presidential results without that of Techiman South. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on the basis of the foregoing election results, and by the power vested in me as the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana and the returning officer of the presidential election, it is my duty and honor to declare Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as President-elect of the Republic of Ghana. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Let peace reign. Thank you.
KJM Yemi